All right. So so you would like we did for the previous assignment, like we covered last week. We would encapsulate all the access to the server through a course service, right, like we did last week, and we would have the various CRUD operations all in the course service, like find all courses, create courses, delete courses. They would all live inside of this course service, and they would be a mirror image of what you would implement on the server side. Okay. Now all of these would be implemented using the fetch function, right? As opposed to using the hard-coded array that would be inside of the in the service, right? So notice that they would all use fetch, accessing the URL, whether that URL is hitting your local server, running on your local machine, or being hosted on some remote server, either on Heroku or wherever. Right? Now again, this fetch is going to use asynchronous invocations to the remote server, and what's going to return is what is called a promise that allows you to bind a callback function that will be called whenever the response comes back from the server. Right? That response can then be parsed out as JSON, and notice that this is a return. Right? This is an implicit return. Right? So this returns a promise. The promise allows us to register a function. This function takes as argument a response and returns this response.json, so parsing that JSON. So all this encapsulated in a function called find all courses. So from within your course list or wherever it is that you're invoking this in the course list, and the component didn't mount, right, like what we're trying to do here. So you would say this.course service find all courses. This is going to return another promise. Right? So the .json also returns a promise, which allows us to register yet another callback. This callback takes as argument whatever was parsed from that body, from that HTTP response, which presumably, hopefully, it's that array that was coming back from that URL. In this case, it would be the array of courses, which we're using to set the state of courses, which can then be used to render the list of courses, which in this case is just an iteration over the courses, the map. Right here, the map is a little more sophisticated. It's using the course row, right, that we implemented in the previous assignment with the unique identifier, and it passes the course as an object, that as a property to that component. Internally, just renders the title. Now, to create the course, you would have a form, like you would implement regularly, and bind the event handlers to be notified inside the component, to maintain its own state of the title of the new course, and when we create the course, what's going to do is that it's going to post. Right, it's going in the create course in the course service. We're going to, instead of doing a get, we're going to generate a post. Now, notice that this fetch here, it's overriding the method that we normally use. Right? Notice here it's saying the method is post. Before, when we did the get, notice that we didn't have to say it was get. Right? That's the default. The default fetch is a get. If you want to do anything other than a get, you have to explicitly say that it's either a post or a put or a delete. Plus, because we're going to be sending data across to the server, we need to provide a body attribute which needs to contain a string version of our JSON object. Right? So this is a course that's being passed as an argument, which is being converted into a string representation. So this stringify converts it into a string, which can then be embedded inside of the body of the HTTP request. But we need to also provide the MIME type, right, to the server, so the server will know how to interpret that string. It says, okay, so it's an application, so meaning It's going to look for curly brackets and quotation marks and whatnot. And it's going to parse it as a JSON object and try to instantiate the course on the server side. Right? The server will do its thing. Eventually, will respond, right, saying, "Okay, well, I'm done." Presumably, it could be whatever you respond from the server. It could be the new list of courses, perhaps containing the new course you just sent over, right? Or it could be whatever you decide to respond with. Here on the server side, we have indeed decided to respond with all the courses, which is very convenient, right? Because you might post a new course, right, and immediately get back a list of all the courses, as opposed to posting a new course and then doing another fetch to retrieve all the courses. So it's conveniently coming back from the server. So here on the server side, notice that we are mapping to a post /API course, and we are parsing the course from the body. Right? We are randomly choosing an integer for the ID of the course. So ideally, this would be done on the database, right? The database would have an auto increment or have a sequence or whatever. We don't have a database just yet. So for now, we're just randomly choosing an integer, which certainly could collide, and then adding it to the local list of courses, and then returning that list of courses right away. So this is both adding to the courses and then returning the list of courses right away, which is very convenient. Now on course list, on component did mount, we could. All right, now here because we're going to have to retrieve the list of courses elsewhere, not only when we're creating one or on mount. Here we've abstracted that function into a reusable function so that we can reuse it elsewhere. And then refactor the component did mount to use this new find all courses. So now create course, we can refactor it so that instead of having two nested thens, we create the course, and then immediately when it comes back, we call the find all courses to retrieve it. Right? Deleting a course. We can go back to the row of courses and add an event handler that if you click on the delete button to invoke the delete on the service. So here we're passing along a function down to the course row to be handled here at the course list level. So we're passing down the function, and then inside of the course row, we're going to have an on-click that's going to invoke this delete course. Right now, the delete course takes no arguments, and it's just doing a console. It's not doing really anything interesting. But in the course row, the course row knows the course that was used to render the course row. So we can on click, we can pass the ID of the course that we want to remove, which we can then use to send over to the server and say, "Hey, server, this is the course we want to remove." Notice that the state is being maintained exclusively on the server. Right? There's no state maintained on the client side, at least for up until the widgets. When we get to the widgets, we're going to have an additional complication there when we have to deal with Redux. Right? Up until courses, modules, lessons, and topics, there is no Redux. Right? So this works just fine. And when we get to Redux, there's an additional complication which we're going to deal with it next week. Right? We'll see how to integrate Redux state management with server state management. Right? This week we're only doing using plain old state management, the out of the box React state management, mapped to state server state management. So anyway, so here we have a delete the course. We're going to pass the ID up to the course list when we click on the button, on the delete button. Right now, we're just verifying that the ID is making it to the course list, making sure we can print it out And then we can then implement the service and make sure that we can connect the event handler on the course list connected to the service. Notice that I'm following the same naming convention all across. On the server, I call it delete course. On the event handler, I call it delete course. On the service, I also call it delete course. Right? Just to keep it straight in my head, that this event handler on the component maps to a delete course event handler, HTTP event handler on the server. The naming convention is uniquely ours, is whatever we want to choose, but it's a good naming convention so that you know that all these are communicating. Anyway, on the service side, this just verifies that the service is receiving the delete, and it's going to invoke. It's going to do a fetch. It's not a get. Since it's not a get, I need to say what type it is. So it's delete. And the response is going to do the same thing that the create course was doing. The create added to the list, and then return the new list. The delete is going to do the inverse. It's going to remove from the list, right, and then return the resulting list. So we're going to send over the. We're going to notice that also we are appending the course ID to the end of the URL, right? Because if in the rest, right, remember that we say the entity that we're dealing with plus the ID of the specific instance that we are deleting. On the server side, notice the at delete mapping, meaning this responds only to delete, and the URL pattern is that it's /API/course/ID, where we're going to receive the ID of the course that's being deleted. We parse out the ID from the URL. Here we're using Java 8 streams, where we're filtering out the courses that don't match the course ID that we want, meaning we only want to keep the courses that are not the ID that we're removing. So this basically filters out, and with a new list of courses that does not contain the course with that particular ID, right? Filters it out. So my new courses list is my original list minus the course that has that particular ID, and then we just return the courses, right? The updated list of courses. If we select a particular if we select a particular course, we would like to navigate, right? So this is just a router that we implemented last week, and the course list that we passed into the route, the course editor. So this is what we did last week, right? The title, the ID that we're passing in the path. So that stays the same. The only difference here is that when we navigate to the course editor, we're passing the ID of the course that we're editing, right? And so that in the course editor, now that we know the ID of the particular course that we're editing, we need to go fetch that particular course given the ID. Right? It says, okay, well, this is the current course that you're editing. I'm going to fetch it from the server. I'm going to look for the ID of that course that matches. I'm going to return that particular instance, and that's what we're going to render for editing. For the data modeling of the modules, the lessons, the topics, they're all parent-children relationships amongst all of them, right? So the course contains modules, the module contains lessons, the lessons contains topics, and so on and so forth, and topics contain widgets. So this week's assignment is to replace the state management of courses, modules, lessons, and topics instead of the hard-coded array that is being maintained on the client, to move that over to the server. All right, so the server will provide all the services to maintain that state on the server side, not the widgets. So the widgets we'll do next week. So for now, the widgets, it would be fine to return just a static list of widgets for now, right? So you don't have to deal with Redux and maintaining that state for this week. Next week, we'll deal with Redux and integrating that with state management on the server. And we'll add the complexity of storing it not on the server, but storing it down to the database, right? So find course by ID. When you navigate to a course editor, right, you need to be able to retrieve that particular course for that particular ID. So on the server, we would be receiving a get mapping for that particular course ID, and then iterating. Please. We're going to iterate over the courses, and when we find that particular course with the course ID, we return that particular course. We could have used streams as well here. If you're familiar with it, you're welcome to do that. On the client side, the course service is a mirror image, right, where you have a find course by ID that takes as argument the course ID, and it maps it. Notice that here we are not passing the method. The method by default is a get, right? And we are parsing the JSON from the domain, from the body, and the client would then render that course. All right. All right. I think that's all I have from you. Sorry, it was faulty here. I'm gonna fix it, debug it, and then I'll share it with the class in a Git repository, so that that'll be a good start. I'll provide both the server side and the client side to see how they talk to one another, so I could use that as a starting point for your assignment. I'll make the assignment available later on tonight, right? And you can start working on that. All right.